Harihi Om Sadashivasamarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Paramananda Madhavam. ओम शिष्य आत्मसमर्पण कार्पण्यदोषो उपहत स्वभावः पृच्छामि त्वां धर्मसम्मूढचेताः यः श्रेयस्यान्निश्चितं ब्रूहि तन्मे शिष्यस्तेऽहं शाधि मां त्वां प्रपन्नम् ओम. So, we are in the Shankara Bhashyam of Bhagavad Gita. However, before we continue with our Shankara Bhashyam, I thought we will bring about a question that was raised by Hari Bhaiya in a WhatsApp chat with me. This is such an insightful question that this question, the answer to this question, can clarify a lot of misconception that people have with reference to some of the terms that we very commonly use. So let us try to get into the question. But prior to that, what I would like to tell you is an Uttama Adhikari, a person who is pursuing this particular path, should look at the world this way. In Upanishad, there is a mantra that comes, Parikshya Lokan Karmachitan Brahmano Nirvedam Ayat. Nirvedam is getting into that kind of a detachment, vairagya. Right? For you to develop this vairagya, what one must do is to become a Brahman. Well, how do you become a Brahman? I was not born as a Brahman. No, by birth, there is no one who is a Brahman. For that, the Upanishad says, Parikshya Lokan Karma Chitan. Putting it in the right order, Parikshya, examine, always question. What do you question? Karma Chitan Lokan. The world, which is Lokaha, which is driven by karma, which is driven by activities. So when anything happens, try to relate it to this jnana that we are getting from Bhagavan and also from the Aachaarya. And try to apply it, figure it out and see why it doesn't fit the common sense. So that is what Hari Bhaiya had done. A great, great question. My first response to Hari Bhaiya was, you always ask such difficult questions. So it was fun. Right, I'm sure Hari Bhaiya will be laughing about it too. Now, the question is like this. Based on the recent flight crash that happened in India, in Ahmedabad, I am still absorbing how does the karma place in these individuals impacted and passed away. Does all of them have the destiny written this way to happen? What was the reason for all lives gone at the same time? Just lot going on my head and curious to learn. So this is the best way that one can apply what we are learning on the experiences that you are going through and question it. Because the experiences will be exact opposite of what we are teaching in Vedanta, what the Upanishads teaches us. Right? I say I have a lot of problems. Upanishad says you don't have any problems. Right? I am what do you say? I am what do you say? Very sad by the death. Upanishad says there is no point in crying for the dead. Right? So in every kind of an experience, you will see that there is a little bit of contradiction, and always be open to ask those questions. When you ask those questions and we try to find the answer, what is revealed is removal of all misconceptions one can have. So, um, again, this is a great question. And when I was responding to Hari Bhaiya, I did tell him about the following things. The first is to understand what is life and what is death. The question from Hari Bhaiya is it destiny that they have to die? But what is death? Right? So that is going to be a fundamental, a foundational question. The second one will be about life. If that is the case, why at all this life? Right? I have come across some very famous Bhagavad Gita teachers struggling to answer this, or Advaitic gurus struggling to answer this question. Right? So we will try to give the answers based on how our tradition has experienced and expressed these answers. Once you understand this concept of life and death, rather, to understand the concept of life and death, you must also know what is karma, right? What is an activity? What is a creation? How does that creation happen? What is sustenance? What is destruction? Right? What is this Trinity all about? So it will lead you into all those places. So a wonderful place to start. Once you understand, the misconception about the death is lost forever. Then we will come to what is karma. Right? How that karma contributes into this creation, sustenance, and destruction. What happens there? So that would be the next question for us to answer. Once we understand the karma, we will be very clear, and the answer about destiny, vidhi, will become very self-revealing, and the question from Hari Bhaiya will be automatically answered. So we will start with the question of life and death. Bhagavan himself says that Bahuni me vyatithani janmani tavacha Arjuna is the way that shloka goes. There have been several births that I have taken, and as well as you have taken. Right? But those details of the birth I know and you do not know. That is the way that Bhagavan will be speaking, and we will come to it when we are in Bhagavad Gita. So, for us to understand the life and death, we need to understand what is Prakriti and Purusha. What is Maya and Atma? Or what is Anatma and Atma? Right? So, in our life, we can experience it directly that there are things which are not having this chetanam, this ability to understand. The conscious principle that drives a living being is not observed in the material world. That leads us to a clear distinction between what is the Chaitanyam and what is Achetanam. right? What is Prakriti and what is Purusha? So this is the fundamental to understanding. Once you understand the difference between the two, all of the others will become easy. So, one, that which does not have an independent existence, and that which does not have Chetana Swabhavam, which does not have this conscious principle. If somebody comes and pinches me, it hurts. So there is something that is happening. And when I'm teaching, you learn something. There is something that is happening. That driver is called as Chetanam. This Chetana Amsham is called as Atma. And the other one is the body, the computer, the mouse, everything is achetana. Anything that is physically manifested is achetanam, which is what is called as prakriti. In Bhagavad Gita, we will see it later that Bhagavan says this prakriti and purusha both are anadhi. They do not have a beginning or an end. The prakriti and the purusha, the chetana swarupam and the jada swarupam, they always existed. That is the second thing that we need to understand. So what is the difference? Are they two? Are we leading into Dvaita Marga? That is the place where the clarification is issued, like what we have seen in the famous Shanti Mantra, right? Purnam ataha purnam idam purnad purnam udachyate. That purnad purnam udachyate is the main aspect. The Prakriti has a dependent existence on the Purusha. That is why the mantra says, if this Prakriti is removed, the Purusha will continue to exist as a whole, which means this Prakriti does not have an existence of its own. The second thing that we know from a scientific analysis, from our own experience, is that this Prakriti always dies. It always goes through a change. When I say death, it is not the death that we are experiencing. Death is a cessation of a specific form of existence before it takes on another form of existence. I have got this notebook in front of me. So it has got an existence. But as soon as I tear all the papers, I don't have the notebook in front of me. It is only the paper. But it exists in the form of paper. At an atomic level, we know the atoms are continuously vibrant. That continues to change. The house that I am in, the next moment is one more moment old. It is not the same house. So that has died and this has got created. So the nature of Prakriti in itself is having a transient existence, which means I will be in this form, then I will move on to another form, then I will move on to another form, and so on. So now we understand. The opposite of it is Atma. Atma is Nishchalam. It is the same. There is no change that happens to the Atma. The way Atma has been identified is it is the Sad Swarupam. Sad Swarupam means it is the form of existence. When this form of existence is given to something, you think that this exists. For example, this is a mouse. When I say is, I have added existence to this mouse. That existence is the quality of Atma, and this mouse, which is of the nature of Prakriti, has borrowed the existence from the Atma. This concept can be spoken for days. It is that beautiful, and there are lots of, uh, texts that are available which qualifies as to how we say that, and we will be touching upon several of them when we are in Bhagavad Gita. So for now, we will simply take it that there is an existence that is associated with the Prakriti for the Prakriti to exist. That is why it has a dependent existence. The second thing is that intelligence that we are able to express. That intelligence is called as Chaitanyam. That is the Chit. Okay, so the form of Atma is Sad and Chit. And when this Sad and Chit is given to the Prakriti, then the Prakriti gains an existence. That is what the creation is. But we know that these two are opposite in nature. The Atma is Sad and Chit. And because it is Sad and Chit, it is called as Anantam. It is also eternal. Right? The property is Sad and Chit. And now I'm going to mix it with the Prakriti, which is not Sad and which is not having Chit. Right? So when this happens, there are two properties that come into being. One is the lending of the Sad and Chit to the Prakriti, and Prakriti having the base of being always getting destroyed or always getting changed. So I need to create an existence out of something that continuously changes. And I have to do that because my nature is Sad and Chit. And for me to hold on to the body, this has to happen. I hope I have not confused you too much. Basically, we have to have existence, we have to have intelligence, and that property is called as Atma. When this Atma comes in contact with Prakriti, which doesn't have existence and which always continues to change, right? When they have to come together to create an existence, then they have to find a happy medium between the two. So, birth is when the Atma and the Prakriti come together to have some kind of an existence which is sustained. Right? The second thing, the death, is when the Atma is unable to sustain the existence on this Prakritik Swarupam, the body, because the body continues to change. So for me, I cannot hold on to this body if in case it just continues to change. So I let go and take on another body. When this happens, this is called the death. So death is actually, from the body point of view, I'm continuously dying. From the Atma point of view, I am never dying. And given this situation, the death happens to be the misconception of my existence as the Prakriti when I am actually the Atma. And that Prakriti's death, which is not a death at all, it is just a transformation. And that transformation, when I cannot hold on to that body, I call it as death. What it warrants is, for me to hold on to this body, I have to continuously fight. I have to continuously be engaged. Right? So there will be a shloka that comes in Bhagavad Gita later, right? Which is, Nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtat jat nahi kaschit kshanamapi jatu tishtasya karma krit. That is the way that shloka goes. Right? So that Bhagavan says, even for one moment, it cannot be that this karma is not there. And we all know it. Right? So this karma is the one which enables the sustenance of the Atman in the Prakriti. And when this karma is unable to hold on to the ever-changing body, then we call it as I leave the body. And in common words, we call it as death. Right? So life is they coming together. When they come together, you have to continue to fight for existence, and you have to let go of this body, because the body continues to change, and beyond a point, you cannot hold on to this body in whichever form that you have defined this particular birth. Right? So even if in case it is Bhagwan who comes in to take a birth in the Prakritik Swaroop, the Rama, Krishna, Buddha, any person you take, they will have to let go of the body, because this body cannot sustain the requirement of the Atma, as the body continues to change at all times. So this clarifies what is birth and what is death. I'm going to take, Namaskar Ravi Bhaiya, Hari Bhaiya, right? I'm going to take a small pause here to ask a question. Am I with all of you still now, or is it gone too far above? Do you have any questions? Hari Bhaiya?
Can you hear me, Guruji?
Yes.
Oh, you're spot on. I was reading that note again, and I'm also listening in too. I do believe that I understood the point of view till now.
Awesome. Beautiful. Thank you.
I do think that as you recording needs to go through deeply one more time for sure.
Makes sense. Makes sense. Okay. Ravi Bhaiya?
I have no questions, Uncle Ji. I still have to digest all these things.
Got it. Okay. No
Thank
problem.
you.
Sanjeshni ji?
Um, I just want to comment that you so beautifully explained this whole concept, because I'm very new to the concept. I'm just learning about Prakriti and Purusha and Atma, and I think you just like really clarified some of my questions I had.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So now we will get to the question which has not been answered in a nice way in several of the recordings that I have heard in these YouTubes and stuff like that. Okay. So why is the life at all? Okay. Now, as I said, there is Prakriti and Purusha put together is the lokam, is the, what do you say, manifestation, right? And there are Vedic mantras which says that it is 1/4 to 3/4, means the manifestation is smaller than the unmanifested, the karanam, or the potential form, right? So that is the way those definitions are coming. We will not get into that, but they have to coexist. For this coexistence, there are two possibilities. One is, I know that I am supporting the Prakriti and I support it. Right? The second one is, I am getting, what is it called? I'm just getting drifted by the swabhav of the Prakriti, or I'm not realizing what I am doing. I'm just, what do you say, continuously going through the change without any control on myself. So there are two possibilities, right? Because there is a dependent existence of the Prakriti. One is, well, this is a dependent existence, I take care. Another is, I don't even know that it's a dependent existence and I continue with the flow. This is the only two possibility. Now, if you look at the earlier quote that I had given, Bahuni me vyatithani janmani tavacharjuna, right? There, Bhagavan expresses very clearly that he is, what do you say, continuing to take birth as well. But the difference is he takes this Maya or Prakriti or these core properties of the Anatma under his control and takes the birth. That is what is an Avatara Purusha. The others are driven by karma. Okay, so the normal Jivan is driven by this natural progression of the Prakriti and continues to be in the cycle of birth and death. Whereas the Brahma Swarupam will also go through the cycle of birth and death, but with a total control, right? Having it in his vash, right? That is the way that Bhagavan will put it. Having it in his control and taking a birth. So, what we need to understand is this birth and death cycle is not just applicable to the Jivan. It is applicable at a universal level at all times. That is the first clarification that we need to have in our mind. Now, the question is, why is it that these people are born out of karma? I understand. Bhagavan is having the control of the Prakriti, and so because he has to sustain the Prakriti, he is continuing to, what do you say, support the Prakriti in whichever form it is. And why it is, etc., we will see it in the 4th chapter. But that is what Bhagavan is doing. Whereas you say that Aham Brahmasmi, and I am going through this cycle of birth and death and birth and death. What is this? Where is this ignorance coming from? So for this, we in our tradition quote two things. One from the Upanishad and another is from the Purans. It's Pauranic. Okay, we'll go with the Pauranic one first. The story is, I have told this before also, I will repeat it now, which is the goddess Lakshmi and Vishnu will be in Vaikuntha. Bhrigu will come, and while he goes to Brahma, he is kind of given highest respect. When he goes to Lord Shiva, he is given a very high respect. Whereas when he comes to Vaikuntha, he is just, Bhagavan is just Ananta Shayanam. He is just totally, immersed in his sleep. When he is like that, Bhrigu gets very angry out of his ego and he kicks Lord Vishnu in his chest. Immediately, Lord Vishnu gets up and he apologizes and he, asks, hope he did not get his, hope his legs are not hurting, and he will make him sit and he will press Bhrigu's feet. Right? So, seeing this, Lakshmi will get angry. And she will go to the earth and she will be born, and then they will get reunited with the Bhagavan. Very simple story, but the symbolism associated with it is, so long as Lakshmi did not see her and Lord Vishnu as separate, she was with him in the Vaikuntha. But the moment she saw that I am different from Lord Vishnu, or the moment I fall into the trap of I am different from the Brahman, my ignorance starts. That ignorance is the cause of birth. Right? So there is a Chaitanyam. This Chaitanyam has the awareness. An awareness can dissect or also see it as a wholesome. Correct? Right. So I am going in and I can say that there are so many students, or I can say there is a class. Right? In the class, I put it collectively. Whereas there are so many students, I dissected them. Right? So it is possible for the Chaitanyam to do both. When I dissect it from the Brahman, it leads me to the state of ignorance, which is what we call as Atma Ajnanatha. right? That ajnanam is the cause of the birth. What happens? I told you, we are always clubbed together with the Prakriti and the Purusha. When this is happening, this becomes my functions. From being a supporter of the Prakriti, I have become one who is carried away in the current of the Prakriti. Prakriti is always karmic in nature. It is continuously having some activity or the other. That is continuous change that is happening. Now, all those change becomes me changing. The karta is born the moment this division is done by me between I and the Brahman, I and the Vishnu. Right? As soon as I do the division, I am into the cycle of birth and death. And through devotion and through the realization that I am not different from God, I once again get back into the God. The same Prakriti will work, the same thing will happen. It is just that instead of me being influenced by the Prakriti, I will start influencing the Prakriti. That change will happen because your Swaroop has become Parabrahmam. That is what we call as Aham Brahmasmi. So long as you are thinking that I am Brahman, you have already objectified the Brahman. As soon as you objectify, you have dissected it. Realization is a state where this dissection does not take place. Up to this point, why birth? Is there any question? Good. I will take silence as no question, and we will proceed with the next thing. So what is death? We already discussed about death to say that, hey, Prakriti continues to change. And what do you say? When I cannot hold on to this Prakriti in this particular form, this form goes and another form is what I get. This transition is what we, out of ignorance, call it as death. The only difference between telling it previously and now is I have consciously added a term called as ignorance in that. So this is something that you can continue to think through. Why is that an ignorance? The reason why it is an ignorance is because instead of looking at you as the Atma, you are looking at the Prakriti, which is always dying, which is always continuously changing. Change is death of the previous and the birth of the next. That change is continuously experienced, and I think I am experiencing this. Now, this karma is not as simple. You know that in the world, the activities are extremely complex. So that complex nature of karma is managed. For that, we will have to get into what is creation. So I am going to draw a picture. When I'm saying I'm going to draw a picture, there is first thing, a purpose that strikes me. That is called as karanam, the causal aspect of it. The second thing is I now think in terms of what I want to draw. I try to define it. I have not yet drawn, but I know that it is going to be a horse, a white horse with, a running kind of a thing. All these are thoughts which form as an image in my mind before I actually draw it. Otherwise, I won't be able to draw. This formation of what is to be done is called as sukshmam. The purpose is the karanam. This subtlety that you created in your mind is sukshmam. And when you have the sukshmam, you exercise it as an action, and there is a painting that is created in front of you, which is something that you can touch and see, etc. That is the sthulam. So physical, subtle, and causal. Physical, the body; subtle, conceptual; and causal, purpose. So this is the core of any kind of creation. Prakriti goes through this in totality, always continues to go through it. So what I do, I say that I am going through this. I become the karta. Right. And this karta is going to add the causal, the purpose into it, karana shariram. That karana shariram is going to manifest into sukshma shariram, which is the subtle aspect of it. And then that will emerge as sthulam, as a body. This transition is what is defined by the karma theory. Right? What is the aspect behind it? Right? So the problem is, in too much of generalization, what we have started doing is, I did something wrong, so something wrong is going to happen to me. That is what is karma. Right? That is not karma. Right? Karma is, it is karma too. Right? So I did something bad is going to happen to me, which is fine. But it doesn't mean I pushed Hari Bhaiya, so Ravi Bhaiya will come and push me. We start looking at karma from that point of view, and that is ignorance. Right? We need to understand this karma of me pushing Hari Bhaiya has happened at causal level, subtle level, and the physical level. And it will give appropriate results in the causal level, physical level, and the subtle level. This causal aspect, or this karma's contribution, is identified also with the continuation of our birth, which is what we simply call it as rebirth. Right? So birth after death, and so on. Right? So that is something that we need to keep in mind. A, the death is me fighting the difficult transitions that the body always goes through and holding on to it. And when I cannot hold on to it, I let go of it, is death, is what we identify as death. The birth, on the other hand, is while I am living, because I lost my sense of being the Atma, I continue to be an Anatma, and anything that Anatma does, I think that I am doing. I become that particular Karta. And in Bhagavad Gita, we will see that this Kartritva Buddhi, in Shankaracharya, in the Bhashyam also, he has used the same thing. This Kartritva Buddhi, that I am the doer, is lost the moment we attain the Atma Gyan. I am Vishnu. Right? There is no difference between Vishnu and I. There is no difference between Brahman and I. Right? It is just that ignorance had separated me from them. And now that this ignorance is gone, I am just that. When that realization happens, not knowledge, not awareness, in the awareness, in the realization, in the knowledge about it, we are still objectifying it. There is a division. When the division vanishes, that is why we call it as Advaita, then you are the same as God. There is no difference between the two. Not in the sharir, in the Atma level. That is why Bhagavan will say in the chapter 5, though he sees, he doesn't see. Though he hears, he doesn't hear. He goes to that extent. Pashyan Shrinvan Sprishan Jigran. Right? So he goes into that level. So we have understood what is life, what is death, why there is life, how death happens. Right? So we have addressed a lot of very, very difficult concept in this. The last aspect of it, which is, does all of them have the destiny written this way to happen? Right. So what is destiny? Okay. This destiny aspect of it, the fate, the vidhi, whatever the term that you put into it, that when it happens, what it means is, let us go back to the very famous shloka, 47th shloka in the second chapter, right? Karmanyeva adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana ma karma phala heturbuhu mate sangostva karmani. Right. So in this particular shloka, what Bhagavan emphasizes is the authority that you have is only in performing the action, not in what is the result that you get out of it. Remember, don't become the cause of an action. Right? So what we do, I did it. And if in case it is not come good, it has not come good, I will say Sanjeshni ji did it. Right? So if it is good, I will say I did it. Otherwise, I will say she did it. Right? So that is the way that we are thinking generally. Most of the human beings, we think in that fashion. What we need to understand is we should not become the cause of a specific action. Not only that, because I don't want to be a cause of any action, so I will be without any action. That is also not possible. So he says, that doesn't mean you will embrace inaction. It says very clearly that you are going to be bound by action. Just remove the binding. That is what that particular shloka emphasizes. Now, when we are talking in terms of always working through that, what it means is every form of units that you are experiencing, every kind of object that you are experiencing, you should put your best effort to maintain it, right? To ensure that the work is done. Like in this body, if in case I don't do anything, I become sick and I just die, I suffer, right? So Bhagavan will say, you won't even have the ability to let go of your life, right? So it is that important that you are engaged in the action as well. Now, when we are talking about objects, we look at the body. That is why if you go back into, or if you go to the chapter 13, then he speaks about the um, the prakriti and kshetram and kshetrajnah. Idam shariram kaunteya kshetramit abhidiyate is the way that he starts. So this body is the kshetra, but after that, all the entities that you have identified, you have associated yourself with, they are also part of your kshetra. Right? And it is your duty to maintain it. When I am maintaining a kshetra, I can always miss out. In this example of the airplane crash, there could be so many things, right? Somebody who supplied the gasoline or the fuel to the plane, he could have done something, right? Means without awareness, without even knowing it, it could have gotten contaminated, which resulted in something to happen. Or if in case there is a bird that comes in and hit, maybe that could have been the reason. There are so many possibilities that can happen. What Bhagavan says is, it is your duty to ensure that you put your best effort in getting it done. But beyond everything, there is something called as it has to fail, because that is the nature of Prakriti. Right? If there is ignorance, you punish, no doubts about it. If there is no, negligence, I use the wrong word. If there is negligence, you punish it. But that doesn't mean the accident is stopped, right? So the accident or any kind of event is bound to happen, right? This bound to happen is represented with the word destiny or fate. Misunderstanding about the term destiny or fate is that something has been written down. I am moving the mouse and it has been written that this mouse is going to go from here to there, and that is why it went there. Right? So that is not the correct understanding of destiny. Destiny is that which will happen when, even beyond your best of the efforts to prevent it from happening. That we classify it as destiny. Right? And it is not like it has been written in your, because the same Shastra also says, when it talks about the Vidhi, it also talks about Swatantraha Karta. The person who is performing the action is independent to do it. If Swatantraha Karta, Karta is free to do, it means the action will have its, the outputs will have a dependence on me performing the action. If that is the case, the vidhi is lost. Right? So what we need to understand is the term vidhi has been introduced to ensure that despite your best of the effort, failures are bound to happen. It is your duty to fight that failure, but accept the fact that you are not going to be 100% successful. You should not be complacent in performing, in discharging your duty. But you must have the heart, or you must have the knowledge, the understanding, the awareness that with the best of what you do, it can still fail. That is to be accepted, and that is what we cover within the term called as fate or destiny or vidhi. Now, summarizing it, what happened? This prakritic aspect of what we saw as a plane had some issues, and this issue can be traced back into several aspects. It can be, what do you say, anything. I'm not talking about just the flight. Rice I'm going to keep. It depends on the land in which it has been grown, the farmer who has grown it, the water that was available. The entire world is coming together for every action that you are doing. This control of the entire world is not in your hand at all. And because of that, we have these accidents. And we accept it as a destiny or as a vidhi, as something that cannot be avoided. The second question, death. Death happened because of whatever happened, that temperature raising or the shock of it, right? Or just the fear of it. A person might not have even burned, he might have just died of the heart attack. And there could have been another person who just was able to walk out of the plane without any major hurt, right? So life, anything can happen, right? The thing is, the death is not attributed to the accident. The death is attributed to the fact that the prakritic changes that happened to this body, this soul was not able to sustain. And hence the death, and hence the soul left for taking on with another body, and that is what we call as death. Right? Does all of them have the destiny written? I have answered the question. What was the reason for all their lives gone at the same time? Because they were all in the same place, flying through the same accident. Simple. It is not, what do you say, it is not like a Vedantic aspect. That accident had all of them. The same thing had happened with a train accident in which 500 people might have died. Or the same thing happened when Titanic sank. Right? So everything that you're talking about is the collection, and we are always in the same collection. And we all experience what has happened. For example, a person who is not even traveling in plane, right? It's a possibility. I don't know whether it has happened or not. Right. So there is a person who is sick and he is seeing this plane crash and in Ahmedabad and the names running on it. Right. And he sees the name Naresh in it. And he thinks it is me who has died and he dies out of the heart attack. Is the plane crash the cause of this person's accident? Think of it. It is, and it is not. It depends on how you create that relationship. The truth is, this entire Prakriti is tied together into one. And this Prakriti has to continuously change. And I, as a Jivan, have to fight for that particular existence and sustenance. And that is my duty. Even if I become an Atma Jnani, I will have to continue doing it. It is not I have become an Atma Jnani and then I do it. There won't be any difference. It is just that the position that I take of me being the doer will be lost, but what is done will remain the same, if not better than anyone else. Right? Kaushalam karma is the way that Bhagavan will speak. Right? And most of these will be answered, but not in this pattern. So I know I took more than the time that I thought I will take. I had thought about this and I said that I will let my mind just go with no control. What I have learned, I will try to express through those words and see if in case it reaches you. And I'm always open for questions, challenges, or debates on this topic. So I hope I have answered the question that you asked fully, Hari Bhaiya. And I'm now opening it up for further Q&As. And we'll start with Hari Bhaiya.
Yeah, but it's a great perspective, Guruji, how you explained it and how you went through more connection to each of the elements, and it's a great perspective shared. Also, you reminded this is not one time happened now recently that triggered the breakdown of that question, right? For me now, I was thinking, looking back, and that's I still remember 15, 16 years ago, I asked that same question to a small baby was running in her home and went super fast and hit the glass door in the backyard, assuming that the door was open, and she just hit and passed away right away, right? So I remember how you explained that one. I was trying to correlate and understand that this one is a bigger impact to the number of people versus than that one. So it explained a lot to me. Well, I appreciate. And I truly, genuinely thank you for investing time to go back to the basics for us sometimes. Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. And it's always a pleasure to have you in the class. I know you are going through some very, very, very tight situation at work, and hope we will be able to see more of you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Yeah, because your questions are really helping everyone else as well. I was just.
I hope so. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. We will go to Ravi Bhaiya.
Hari Bhaiya, thank you for this beautiful question. It's very enlightening, and I don't think I could have asked these questions. I mean, these things never crossed my mind to some degree, but thank you. And Uncle Ji, I appreciate you as Hari said, that the time and effort you invest, we really appreciate you. Thank you. And
Thank you.
I have started noticing ये जो बुद्धि है कितना स्थिर हो रहा है धीरे धीरे.
Thank you.
Thank you for your all the support, Uncle Ji. Thank you.
Absolutely, Bhaiya. Sanjeshni ji?
Yeah, first of all, Satyake, thank you to Hari Bhaiya for asking such an insightful question. You know, honestly, I heard about the news and I brushed it off, you know, within minutes when it all happened. You know, I didn't really stop to think the deeper, you know, meaning behind all of this. So it's really interesting to actually see people who think so deeply about it and you know, ask questions. And then also thank you very much for Guruji. You know, itna you invest so much time and you're so welcoming with the questions. Is so encouraging actually to for people like us to, you know, be so, you know, forthcoming with questions too, because sometimes, you know, you ask questions and the person you're asking doesn't really you don't feel the, you know, the response or the welcoming. You make it feel so easy for us to ask questions. And after this whole thing, I really did it is a very deep meaning, deeper understanding. I thought about some other things that came to my mind that has happened to me personally, which I think I'm going to ask you those questions later, Guruji. I'm pretty sure you're gonna get a big long text message from me.
Anytime, no problem. Right. So if I don't know, I will say I don't know. But I think if in case it relates to the Vedantic aspect of it, I think I have a decent hand to it. So I may be able to answer. So I will try my best.
Decent is a very humble word for you, Guruji. You are so knowledgeable. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, we will do the Shanti part and take leave today. Hari Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Tat Sat.